I think the San Francisco 49ers had probably the least luck when it came to injuries last year, and it's not something that is a new statement to be making. I mean, we saw it the whole entire year. D Ford, Nick Bosa, Jimmy Garoppolo, George Kittle, a lot of the running backs, many offensive linemen, the whole defense basically ended up being injured last year. Really, nothing went right for the San Francisco 49ers. And the fact that they actually won 6 games all last year, even though the entire year they were playing without a majority of their actual team, and some of the stats that they put up on the offense and defensive side of the ball, they probably were the most successful under 500 team that I've seen ever in my life. Just going ahead and taking a look at the offensive side of the ball, 12th in passing, 15th in rushing, 31st in turnovers, 21st in points, and 21st in sacks. Now, I understand that those last three numbers, 31st in turnovers, 21st in points, and 21st in sacks, are not numbers that you look at and say, oh yeah, that's a successful offense. But having the 12th best passing attack in a year where you're majority starting CJ Beathard or Nick Mullins, and your receivers, you didn't have Brandon Ayuk for the entire year. Deebo Samuel was gone for a majority of the season. George Kittle, like I said, missed half of the season. The running backs were in and out of the lineup. They did not have a single skill position player who was a major factor play the entire year last year. And the fact that they were still a top 12 passing team and a top 15 running team, that just goes to show how good of a coach that Kyle Shanahan is for that San Francisco 49ers team and just how well they are running their organization over there in San Francisco. And defensively, the numbers get even better. 4th in passing, 7th in rushing, 21st in turnovers, 17th in points, and 22nd in sacks. Now, the 21st in turnovers and 22nd in sacks, those are numbers that you could easily see are affected by the injuries. Like I said, D Ford played 1 game. Nick Bosa played 2 games. Javon Kinlaw, their first-round pick, I believe, missed a couple games as well. They didn't really have a single defensive lineman play a majority of snaps last year. And the fact that they were 22nd, yes, it's a poor number, but that's a number just getting guys back that were injured last year is going to be affected by. So let's go ahead and start talking about the guys who were gone from last year. And there are some names that are gone that were effective players for the team last year. Kendrick Bourne, Marquise Goodwin, and Trent Taylor are 3 wide receivers who were good for this team and will be missed along this skill position group. Tevin Coleman, Jerick McKinnon are also 2 guys who are going to be missed. And CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins are gone. Even though they're the backup quarterbacks, that does signal that there is a change coming within this team. Those 2 guys being gone obviously means that Trey Lance has a chance to not just be a backup for this team, but be a starter and demote Jimmy Garoppolo back to that backup position. Defensively, they didn't lose a whole lot in terms of a player standpoint. Kerry Hyder and Solomon Thomas are going to be missed, especially Solomon Thomas. He's really the first guy that was drafted within the past 5 years to not work out for this defense. So he is going to be missed along that team. Akilo Witherspoon and Brian Body Calhoun are also gone. The real guy who's gone from the defense that is going to make a big impact in his leaving is Robert Saleh, the new head coach of the New York Jets. What Robert Saleh has been able to do over the past 4 or 5 years, I believe it was, as the San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator cannot be understated. He was a big factor in them going to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and he was a big factor in this team just being as good as they were on the defensive side of the ball. So like I said, he's really going to be missed from the San Francisco 49ers, not just in the standpoint of what he brings to the team on the field, but off the field, I think he was a great motivator for that team, and he's going to do a really good job for the New York Jets. Now let's go ahead and talk about who's new to this team. In terms of their skill players, they added guys like Mohamed Sanu, Trent Sherfield, Wayne Gallman, and Trey Sermon in the draft. Now, the Trey Sermon draft pick is something that I really like. I'm an Ohio State fan, so seeing him get picked to a team that I think he's going to succeed with was something that I'm really excited about. I think Mohamed Sanu is going to bring a level of continuity to this wide receiver group that they actually need. Alex Mack and Aaron Banks were brought to this team, as well as Sanio Calamente for that offensive line. So that just bolsters their offensive line, who was a decent group last year, but like I said, injuries really ravaged this team, especially on the offensive line last year. Them going along into an offensive line with their tackles, Mike McGlinchey and Trent Williams, they're probably going to have a really decent offensive line this year that is going to help names like Trey Lance and Trey Sermon. If they end up playing a majority of snaps for this team, they're going to have a successful year behind that offensive line. Now, defensively, they did not add a lot of names. Really, the two big names that they added were Maurice Hurst and Simpson Ebukam. The Maurice Hurst addition is something that actually I really like. Maurice Hurst, I think, got a really raw deal from the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't know. Now, defensively, they didn't add a lot of names to this already decent defense. They did add names like Maurice Hurst and Samson Ebukam. Maurice Hurst, I think, is a really good addition to this defensive line. I don't understand necessarily why the Las Vegas Raiders decided to just let him go for nothing. But at the end of the day, the 49ers have him now, and I think alongside Javon Kinlaw, Nick Bosa, and Dee Ford, this defensive line is going to play completely out of their mind once they're fully healthy and going on all cylinders. And the Samson Ebukam addition, I think, is going to be something that we are underrating now, but when we're looking at it halfway through the season, especially San Francisco 49ers fans watching this guy, I mean, we watched Samson Ebukam be probably the most underrated player on a really good defense for the Los Angeles Rams for the past 3 years. He came up being a special teams enforcer. He was really one of the few guys to start playing well alongside Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and a couple other defensive players for that Rams team. He really was a key factor for them. So I think him alongside Fred Warner and the rest of that defense are going to play out of their mind. I think something that is not really an addition for this defense, but someone who got promoted to a bigger role is new defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans. He was the inside linebackers coach last year. He may have been there before last year as well, but for sure he was there last year as the inside linebackers coach. And we see the work that he's put in, and we see how well Fred Warner has started to play in the past few years for the San Francisco 49ers team. So if what DeMeco Ryans has brought to Fred Warner and the rest of the inside linebackers, if he can portray that to the rest of the defense and also have them playing at this successful level, this defense isn't going to lose a lot by losing Robert Saleh. I would assume that defensively they're going to schematically have a lot of the same sort of ideas and principles. But DeMeco Ryans is probably going to bring a different sort of mindset when it comes to calling his plays, calling his shots, calling his blitzes, whatever he's calling. He's going to have his own little bit of a mindset to it that could make the defense get worse or get better. But hopefully, at the very least, they stay as good as they were last year and years before. So let's go ahead and talk about what this year looks like for the San Francisco 49ers. One guy that I have not talked about, or at least not talked about a lot, is Trey Lance. This situation with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo is really tricky when you compare it to the other rookie veteran quarterback situations. Justin Fields and Andy Dalton, there's an obvious person who should start there. Mac Jones and Cam Newton, I think it's obvious who should start there. In the Jacksonville case, I think it was obvious no matter who was there in Jacksonville already, Trevor Lawrence was going to be the starting quarterback. With this Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo situation, I don't know if it's so obvious because Jimmy Garoppolo just 2 years ago took the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl. Even though he struggled in the Super Bowl and the Kansas City Chiefs did beat the 49ers in that Super Bowl, he was the quarterback of a Super Bowl team. And I don't think that can just be thrown out of the window. I don't think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are just going to necessarily throw that out the window. With that being said, I don't know how much they're really losing with Trey Lance because Trey Lance fits more of a modern mold of today's quarterback. He's more elusive, he's more mobile, he can still throw the ball deep down the field. He probably can throw deep down the field a little bit better than Jimmy Garoppolo can. If you look at what Trey Lance did well in college, a lot of his throws were 30, 40 plus yards down the field for touchdowns. And with guys like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and a lot of running backs that they have in the backfield, you need someone like Trey Lance who not only can make plays with his arm, he can make plays with his legs, he can make plays in open space. He's not going to be a guy who is going to be hurting this offense, at least not in my opinion. He's not going to be hurting them as much as Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't help them, if that makes sense. I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he is probably a top half of the league starting quarterback. That's just my opinion. I know I probably value him higher than a lot of other people do, but I still think he can be the quarterback of a Super Bowl winning team. That's just my opinion. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily know how much they're losing by starting Trey Lance. This team is still schematically Kyle Shanahan's, this is his team. This is Kyle Shanahan's team. And whatever quarterback is in the lineup, I think they're going to be successful on the offensive side of the ball. Trey Lance brings a different sort of dynamic that could make them even more successful, but I don't necessarily know if starting Jimmy Garoppolo is the worst idea in the world. Defensively, they're going to be really good. Like, that's just going to be a foregone conclusion. The defense is going to be really good. Offensively, I don't know. They're probably going to be a top half of the league offense, but with Trey Lance, they could be even better. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback from you at this point is much appreciated. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.